identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it.
CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed has been going through this lengthy document, has all the details. So what happens with the money the administration has already collected, Paula? Billions and billions of dollars. What happens to all that money that the U.S. collected from these tariffs?
And that is the question right now, Wolf, because not only is this a rare loss for President Trump before the 6-3 conservative court, it has not only implications for his presidential powers, but also for the global economy. And in his dissent, Justice Kavanaugh acknowledges that this opinion really doesn't give specifics on how exactly they are supposed to refund that money that's already been collected. He writes, quote, "Nothing today in this opinion about whether, and if so how, the government should go about returning the billions of dollars that is collected from importers. The justices knew this would be an issue. This came up at arguments. Obviously, if they strike down these tariffs, the administration is faced with this logistical challenge of issuing these refunds. It is expected that this will have to be decided by the lower courts, and Kavanaugh predicts in his dissent that this process will likely be a, quote, mess."
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go to Joe Biskupic, who was right inside the Supreme Court when this came out. I mean, this is the most significant opinion today of the High Court. And there was, as you put it, 10 minutes of high drama.
There was, the chief comes out, and this is the first thing they've all been together for a month. He comes out with his 8 associate justices, sits down, and he says, "I have the opinion to announce in this case." And you could feel that he kind of wanted to take them into drama, but he could not help but permeate the room. Sitting right in front of him was Solicitor General John Sauer, the man who argued this case for Donald Trump, and argued it with the same sort of aggressiveness that Donald Trump talks about on policy. He was talking about in legal terms. This definitely should be a power of the president. Also in the room, coincidentally, happened to be Neil Katyal, who had argued for one of the challengers. He was there on other business, but also obviously hoping that we could finally hear what the court said about this challenge policy. The chief, it was a classic chief opinion in these 3 ways. First of all, a real separation of powers issue here. Who has the authority to tax? And that's what tariffs are. He noted tariffs are taxes. That is congressional authority and Congress's alone. He stressed that. He also stressed that in the past, that same court had struck down initiatives of President Joe Biden that violated what a doctrine they're calling the major questions doctrine that holds that if you're going to do something major in policy, economic or monetary, Congress needs to have written a law that is absolutely clear that the president has this authority. And he said there was no clear authorization here, just as we said for President Biden in cases involving, for example, the student loan rollback and environmental protection issues that just like we did for our past president, we're doing for this president, Donald Trump. He also went to his go-to justice, the great Chief Justice John Marshall, to kind of cite important guardrails between the 2 branches.
Yeah. We were talking earlier, Joan. We said this could be a case where Chief Justice Roberts was looking to say no to the president's power. We all remember the immunity case. That brought a lot of scrutiny on the justices, right? And then, of course, I believe it was last year at the State of the Union, President Trump walked up to Chief Justice Roberts, and I'm sure he was horrified. Thank you
Thank you
which,
very much.
A lot of people read into that, and however way they wanted to in light of that opinion. In this case, you not only have Chief Justice Roberts signing on with the liberals saying that the president violated the law with these tariffs, but you have 2 of the president's appointed justices to the High Court.
That's right. Neil Gorsuch, his very first appointee in his first term, and Amy Coney Barrett, who has made such a difference on this court. And they were also with the chief on this majority opinion, essentially saying we cannot, what President Trump had tried to do here went just too far. The president has some authority in the tariff area, but he cannot go it alone. And that's what he tried to do here. And Neil Gorsuch specifically had said during oral arguments, or at least suggested during oral arguments, and then he reinforced in this concurrence, that Congress has this authority, and if Congress is allowed to cede that authority, it will never get it back, and the court did not want to be party to that.
It's so interesting, as David Sanger said, it seems like the court in this case is more concerned about Congress and separation of powers than some members of the Congress.
Yes, right.
All right, let's bring in Natasha Sarin, who served as a former counselor